Enzo kalaban ang katiwalian at kasinungalingan, kakampi sa katotohanan at kabutihan.
Attorney Conti, let's first talk about the missing Sabungero's case. It's the latest development in this incident. Some policemen who were tagged to be killers of the missing Sabungeros were also tagged as part of the Duterte drug war. Will this actually affect the case of the former president before the ICC?
Well, in the sense that this would be additional evidence. Actually, the police have been implicated, or in particular, these death squads have been implicated in also killings of activists and other such targeted killings. And it would add to the concept of some policemen being involved in a death squad or alternative criminal syndicate.
And can the prosecution still submit this evidence, considering that the deadline was last July 1?
Well, yes. The deadline last July 1st was for the confirmation of charges, and which is why they have come up with a document containing the charges, or what we call here in the Philippines would be the information or the charge sheet. Now it hasn't yet, there is no redacted version yet released or public version yet released, but we understand that this has been submitted. There could be additional evidence if these charges are confirmed and we proceed to trial. There could still be an opportunity for additional evidence to be presented.
Talk to us the importance or the relevance or how crucial this missing Sabungero's case is to the case of former President Rodrigo Duterte before the ICC, especially if the DOJ actually establishes police impunity in the Philippines.
Well, I would say that there would be a tangential link in the sense that the perpetrators are motivated by either the same reward system, quota system, or have operated under the same instruction or directives. If they could also connect these perpetrators to the same criminal syndicate, as I mentioned, meaning they have the same hierarchy, they have the same boss, so to speak, or mastermind, then it could tie up neatly, in a way, with the war on drugs case, because the only variable then would be the motive, or why these people have been killed. But if the institution or the organization exists, then it would support very well the organization that was used in the war on drugs operations as well.
All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about what's going on in the ICC at the moment. The latest filing that we saw was that of the defense responding to the prosecution's filing with regard to the request to dismiss the case due to lack of jurisdiction. The tit for tat continues in the ICC. How long do you think with the ICC would it take for the ICC to finally decide on the jurisdiction of this case? Because I would assume that they would have to decide on the jurisdiction first before the interim release of the former president.
Well, yes, although in the ICC, I think what would be more urgent for the judges to decide on would be interim release. However, there is no kind of deadline for that. They could even decide on that after September 23rd. It just depends really on the parties or all of the interested groups to comment. As of now, we haven't heard from the country that was supposed to have confirmed that it could host Duterte, or even from the Assembly of State Parties. So setting that aside, now the issue of jurisdiction could actually be decided, as you said, before, or should actually be decided before, but the ICC rules allow for the decision or for the consideration of this at the same time as the confirmation of charges hearing. So the maximum or one option would be for the judges to hear arguments on this on September 23rd as well.
All right. So it's not very likely for the ICC to not proceed with the September 23rd hearing, even if go ahead.
Yes, I would say that the probability of the schedule being postponed just because of the issue of or the challenge to jurisdiction is unlikely. So the only material factor would have been if the prosecution had failed to submit or to transmit its evidence or the document containing the charges. But as we see now, with all the evidence transmitted to the defense, about 3,000 items pointing to crimes against humanity and even to some exculpatory evidence, then most likely the September 23rd deadline will push through. As regards jurisdiction, it will not have a material effect in terms of scheduling because it could be scheduled or it could be discussed on September 23rd as well. However, of course, the defense doesn't want that. The defense, which is why I think it's kind of submitting now additional information or hastening the court in some way to decide on the issue of jurisdiction because it would like this issue to be resolved before September 23rd.
Attorney Conti, explain to our viewers the gravity of a former president being faced or hurled before the ICC for a confirmation of charges. Lawyers would understand, but the public needs to know or needs to further appreciate. Bakit po ba important for the defense for the September hearing not to proceed?
Well, for the defense, its primary consideration or its primary issue is that the ICC has no jurisdiction, and so it should not proceed to any evidentiary or anything that talks about the merits of the case. In a sense, ang pinag-uusapan natin wala namang kapangyarihan yung ICC. Kaya wag na nating pag-usapan kung guilty ba o hindi siya doon sa mga krimen. Kaya pag nagsimula na kasi yung pinag-uusapan yung kaso, kumbaga, parang you have one foot in already in the case. So for the defense, it's really crucial that he either be released to, get that semblance of innocence, and second, that the charges be dismissed. However, for the Filipinos, and I would say for the rest of the world, it would be an important measure of impunity in the world to see a former president of the Philippines, stand to trial for something that has been so notorious and well discussed all over the world. They've seen and talked about the killings regarding the war on drugs, and have just stood in some ways idly by. And now we have an international criminal court that can dispense justice, that can do something about it. So I would really like to see the international community stand by the victims of the war on drugs, just for that point about knowing the truth about what happened.
I know this question has already been asked multiple times, countless times, but just in case you have additional information, do you have any inclination as to where country A and country B would be?
Well, to be frank, none. There is no disclosure requirement for victims to know that. We're more interested as to the conditions. But as far as we know, or as far as we would like to, hopefully this country would be nearer to The Hague rather than farther, because it will, in a way, be easier in terms of travel.
So far, based on the most recent filing of the defense panel, what do you make of the more combative language, if I may say, that the defense used here in this filing?
Well, and as well as the filing that it has submitted as regards interim release, the defense is also asking for permission to reply to the prosecution's comment on the interim release. Well, I would say that the defense really wants either interim release or permanent release before the trial happens. And on the part of the victims, it's because we see that Duterte might have no defense as regards the merits of the case. What will he say about the actual charges? When we've seen him all over media during his time as president saying, kill, kill, kill. And after his time as president saying that he's responsible for all these killings and that this was just because he was doing it for the Filipino people. So with all his admissions, I would be interested to see if he has any defense lined up at all as to the merits or the main charges.
Does that contribute to speculations as to why the defense would not want the the September 23rd confirmation hearing to proceed? No defense. That's quite a claim.
Well, yes. Well, not really no defense. Of course, they will mount a defense, but it's hard for us to grasp at what possible defense will he have. Will he deny that he gave the orders? Will he deny that the killings happened? And so that would be really interesting for us, how he would fashion his defense. To put forward some probabilities, he could also say that he's not the most responsible. Somebody else is. Kumbaga, meron bang ilalaglag dyan? Kaya tingnan natin kung anong kalalabasan niya dito sa September 23. Kasi kung kami, wala kaming nakikitang malinaw na patutunguhan ng defense niya.
Everyone is busy discussing about the technicalities at this point, but if we recall, during the arrest of the former president, talk has been rife on whether or not other personalities involved in the drug war should also be arrested. Do you still see a need for other personalities in the drug war to be arrested, particularly Senator Ronald De La Rosa, the chief implementer of the war on drugs?
Oh yes, because truth and accountability will be complete if we see all the most responsible on trial at the ICC. And to note, the other side of the coin is likewise the small fry or the perpetrators, the direct perpetrators of the crimes. We would like to see either security sector reforms or, on the whole, accountability mechanisms for all those involved in the war on drugs, because we cannot just move on and forget what happened. We need to have changes, reforms, not only in the police, also our culture, also our acceptance of these crimes and of the power of the police. Ganun na lang balagi na porket police, pwedeng palampasin ang ginagawa nila.
Much of the talk about the ICC case has been about the prosecution and the former president, but let's talk about the victims that you are representing. How are they preparing for the September trial?
Oh, right now we're in the thick of filling out our application forms. So victims of Duterte might not fall under the general concept of a victim of the crime. It's because the charges against Duterte will be limited to a particular time. So between 2011 to March 2019, to, well, location, Philippines, and particularly in Davao, and only limited to the crime of murder. And there would be other victims of, say, so to speak, tokhang, who would those be arrested and detained and then eventually released or acquitted on charges. Now, there's a huge universe of victims of Duterte, but only a small portion will be considered victims of the crime. They can apply to participate in the case so that their views and concerns could be heard. The deadline for this is August 3rd, and the consideration of legal representation. So the legal representatives for the victims will be determined after the application of the victims.
Bunyog, bunyog, halikan na kasama ka. Bunyog, kapag buklod ay may pag-asa. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, isa ang pananaw. Sa bagong Pilipinas ang bunyog isisigaw. Bunyog.